It was Friday, and I had just got home, looking forward to the weekend. My wife was waiting for me, but not with her usual smile and peck on the cheek. Instead, she was fidgeting, a determined look on her face. Something was up, and it didn't look good. "Darling," I said, stopping in my tracks to look at her. "Is something wrong? Where are the children?" It was unusual for the children to be home at this time on a Friday. "The children are with my mom until Monday, John," she replied. "I need to talk to you about something, and I need you to listen and try to understand." For the children not to be home at this time on a Friday, the children were with my mother until Monday. "John," she replied, "I need to talk to you about something, and I need you to listen and try to understand." Her voice was almost pleading, and despite the worry that was flooding me, I promised I would try. She thanked me. Her relief was obvious. But what followed was far from what I could have ever expected. "John, it is something that is going to happen, and it is going to happen soon." I started to laugh thinking it was a joke, but the seriousness in her eyes stopped me. She was serious, and as she continued to explain, I felt a mixture of disbelief and anger rising in me. She assured me of her love, but revealed her desire for experiences. The conversation spiraled from there with her insistence on continuing down this path regardless of my feelings. She argued that it was about her needs, not a lack of love or a desire to cheat in the traditional sense, but the thought alone was enough to shatter my trust and leave me feeling broken as I sat there staring at her. Trying to comprehend what she had just told me, realizing that my wife of 17 years was essentially asking for my permission to destroy our marriage, begging me to understand, to see it from her perspective, insisting that it was all about sex, not love. But the distinction provided little comfort. "John, say something, Veronica," her voice begged, breaking the heavy silence that had fallen between us, but words eluded me. How could I articulate the whirlwind of emotions I was feeling? Betrayal, hurt, disbelief, and anger swirled within me, making it impossible to speak. Ultimately I, Rose, could no longer be in the same room with her. The house, once a symbol of our life and love together, now felt alien and cold. I retreated upstairs to our bedroom, which suddenly seemed like a monument to naivety and betrayal. The physical space between us did little to distance me from the turmoil of my mind. Veronica's proposal, her justification for it, echoed in my mind, tormenting me. The woman I had loved and trusted above all others had revealed a desire I could not reconcile. That I couldn't reconcile with the person I thought I knew. Feeling trapped and suffocated, I realized I had to escape, if only for a while. The idea of confronting her, of trying to understand her perspective, seemed impossible. Instead, I decided to walk, to put physical distance between myself and the source of my pain. As if guided by a force outside myself, I slipped into comfortable clothes and shoes, grabbed a few essentials, and headed back downstairs. Veronica was still there, sitting in silence, a statue of remorse and determination. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I saw the plea in hers, but the gulf her words had opened between us seemed insurmountable. "Who are you?" I found myself asking, though I knew the answer would change nothing without waiting for her response. I turned and walked out the door, leaving behind the life I thought we had built together. The cool air outside was in sharp contrast to the stifling atmosphere I had fled, my feet carrying me forward, away from the house, away from Veronica. I didn't know where. I only knew that I needed to move, to escape the pain, if that was possible. As the houses and streets passed in a blur, I tried to concentrate on the rhythmic sound of my footsteps, on the physical act of moving forward. It was a futile attempt to silence the chaos of my thoughts, to find some clarity in the midst of the storm that had engulfed my life. It was a skill that had won me accolades in college, a practice that had always helped me clear my mind and focus. But on this day the rhythmic pounding of my feet against the pavement served only as a desperate attempt to escape the turmoil inside me. The further I walked, the more my mind raced, replaying the conversation with Veronica over and over again. Her words, her request felt like a betrayal of everything we had built together over the last 17 years. The shock of it numbed me to the core, yet with every step a cold hard anger began to settle in. How could she, our vows, our family, mean so little to her as the miles stretched out on the initial shock? The life I had known, the future I had envisioned with Veronica, and our children seemed to crumble before my eyes. The thought of our children brought a new wave of pain. How would I explain this to them? What would become of our family? I realized that no amount of distance could shield me from the reality of the situation. Yet, I couldn't bear the thought of returning home, of facing Monica, and the monumental rift her confession had caused. The cold put my body on autopilot, driven by the need to keep moving, to somehow escape the pain. But with each step the weight of my wife's words weighed more heavily on me, a constant reminder of the upheaval that awaited me. Eventually exhaustion set in, both physical and emotional, the adrenaline that had fueled my initial flight fading, leaving behind a deep-seated fatigue. It was then that I realized the futility of my attempt to escape the inevitable. No matter how far I walked, the problems that awaited me at home remained. In this moment of clarity, I understood that running away either physically or emotionally would solve nothing. The issues between Veronica and I needed to be faced, no matter how daunting the prospect. With a heavy heart I turned around, knowing that the journey back would be the first step towards facing the uncertain future that lay ahead. As I retraced my steps, the streets now bathed in light, the streets now bathed in light, the streets now bathed in darkness, the streets now bathed in darkness, the streets now bathed in darkness, the streets now bathed in darkness. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with pain and possibly heartbreak, but it was a road I had to take for myself, for Veronica, but most of all for our children. The walk back home felt longer than the escape had. Each step seemed to echo the turmoil in my heart, a steady beat of confusion, betrayal, and a deep, unrelenting sadness. The familiarity of the neighborhood, once comforting, now felt alien, as if I was walking through a life that was no longer mine. Through a life that was no longer mine. The darkness of the night mirrored the sense of loss that had settled deep within me as I reached our house. The sight of it sparked a pang of longing for simpler times, for the days before this rift had opened between Veronica and me. The house, once a symbol of our shared dreams and love, now stood as a monument to our broken relationship. I hesitated at the door, unsure of the welcome that awaited me inside. Veronica was where I had left her, her posture one of anticipation and dread. The tension in the room was palpable. The tension in the room was palpable, a tangible manifestation of the distance that had grown between us. Her eyes searched mine for signs of forgiveness or understanding, but all I could muster was a professorial sense of weariness. "John, where have you been?" Her voice was one of concern, but underneath, I could detect a hint of fear. It was clear that she understood the gravity of what she had asked me to do, and now feared the consequences of her request. I didn't reply immediately, struggling to find the words to express the whirlwind of emotions I had been through. How could I explain the depth of my pain, the sense of betrayal that had driven me to leave? If only for a while, I needed to think, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. The simplicity of the statement belied the complexity of the thoughts and emotions that had consumed me during my absence. Veronica nodded, her expression a mixture of relief and apprehension. She moved as if to come closer, but I unconsciously took a step back, a physical manifestation of the emotional barrier that had formed between us. I knew she was right, but the thought of delving into the heartache and betrayal was overwhelming. Instead of responding, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had led us to this point. Our marriage, once filled with love and shared dreams, had been irrevocably changed by Veronica's confession and painful decisions, but I knew that for the sake of our children, and perhaps even for the remnants of the love we once shared, we had to try to navigate this new reality together. With a heavy heart, I nodded, signaling my willingness to engage in the conversation that needed to take place. It was the first step towards facing the uncertain future, a future that had been unimaginable just days before. In the silence of our home, where the echoes of a once harmonious life lingered, Veronica and I faced each other, standing on the brink. "John, I understand if you can't forgive me. I've betrayed not only you, but our family, our vows. But if there's any part of you that believes in the love we've shared, I was lost, but I see now that nothing, no fleeting desire, is worth losing you." Veronica's voice trembled with emotion, her eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and despair. I listened to every word she spoke, stirring a tempest of emotions within me: anger, betrayal, love, and a haunting sense of loss. Could I just let go of the life we had, of the future we had envisioned. But how could I hold on knowing that the trust that was the bedrock of our relationship had been so deeply shaken, Veronica? I can't pretend to understand because I don't. I don't. The pain of even imagining you with someone else is indescribable. But I can't ignore the years we've shared, the family we've raised. I don't know if I can put this behind me, but I'm willing to try for our children. For the love that was the core of our life together. I said the words heavy with the weight of my torn heart. Her response was a quiet sob, a release of the tension that had held her rigid. We moved closer, the physical gap between us closing as we grappled with the emotional chasm that had opened up in that moment. There was an unspoken understanding that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. We need help, I continued, my practical side surfacing through the emotional turmoil. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. This situation you brought into our marriage is more than we can handle alone if we're to have any chance. Professional counseling? Varen nodded her agreement, instantly and firmly. Yes, whatever it takes, John. I just don't want to lose you or our family. As we stood there in the living room that had seen so much of our life together, there was a fragile sense of hope amidst the ruins of trust. The way forward was uncertain, but for the first time since the book of Revelation there was a glimpse of a future where the pieces could somehow be put back together. That night, as we sat together, a silent agreement was made that we would embark on this journey of healing, not knowing where it would take us, but understanding that the alternative was a loss that neither of us could bear. The work would be hard and the outcome uncertain. But we were determined to try for the sake of our past and the glimmer of a future together that was still impossible to bridge against all odds. Yet, in that silence, there was also a desperate longing for understanding. Veronica broke the silence, her voice trembling with emotion. John, I know I've hurt you deeply, and I can't undo what I've said, but I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that I'm sorry. The thought of losing you, our family, is unbearable. I was lost, but I see now that my search for something more led me away from the most important thing I've ever had. Her words resonated with a sincerity that reached the part of me that still clung to the love we shared. But the pain and betrayal were not easily dismissed. The wound was deep, and I was unsure if it could ever fully heal. I want to believe you, Veronica, I said. The conflict inside me was evident in my voice. But how do I trust that it won't happen again? How do we move on from here? She stepped closer, her eyes searching mine for some sign of forgiveness, of hope. I don't expect you to forgive me overnight, John, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn back your trust, to prove to you and to our children that I'm committed to our family. We can go to counseling, work through this together. Please just give me a chance to make things right. The suggestion of counseling, of actively working to repair our relationship? It wouldn't be easy, and the road ahead would undoubtedly be fraught with challenges. But perhaps with time and effort we could find our way back to each other. I nodded slowly, the decision weighing heavily on me. Okay, Veronica, we'll try counseling for the sake of our family and the love we once shared. The relief on her face was palpable, a mixture of gratitude and renewed determination. Thank you, John. The first no, I have a lot to make up for, but I promise you I will do everything in my power to make this right. As we stood there in the living room of our home, the future was still uncertain, but in agreeing to this we agreed to try. It was a small beacon of hope, a testament to the resilience of love and the possibility of forgiveness. In the days that followed, Veronica and I took the first tentative steps towards mending our broken relationship. We researched and found a counselor who specialized in marital issues, particularly those involving trust and fidelity. It was a strange, almost real process, admitting to a stranger the depth of our problems, but it was also a relief to lay bare the wounds that had festered in silence. Our first counseling session was uncomfortable to say the least. Sitting side by side on a couch that only seemed to emphasize the distance between us, we began to unpack the layers of hurt, misunderstanding, and neglect that had brought us to this point. John, can you tell me how Veronica's request made you feel? Dr. Ellis asked, her voice calm and welcoming. I struggled to articulate the torrent of emotions that Veronica's confession had unleashed. Betrayed me, I suppose, and it made me less than I was. Wasn't it enough for her? It made me question everything about our marriage, I admitted. The words felt both liberating and terrifying as they hung in the air between us. Veronica reached out, her hand tentatively covering mine, a gesture of solidarity I hadn't expected. "I'm so sorry, John," she said, "to hear you say that. It's heartbreaking to understand the pain I've caused. I was so caught up in my own insecurities that I didn't see how selfish I was." Dr. Ellis nodded, acknowledging the difficulty of our admissions. "It's important to voice these feelings to understand where they come from." "Veronica, can you tell John what led you to feel this way? The need to seek experiences outside your marriage." Veronica's answer was a journey into her own insecurities, a revelation of the fears and doubts that had been simmering beneath the surface of our seemingly happy life. I felt I was missing out on something, that there was a part of life I hadn't experienced. But I can see now that I was chasing an illusion, risking the most important things in my life for a fleeting desire. The session continued with Dr. Ellis gently probing the depths of our disconnection, guiding us through the tangled web of our emotions. It was exhausting, emotionally draining work, but as we left her office, I felt a light bulb go off. That day, I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in what felt like forever. It seemed there might be a way forward for us. In the weeks that followed, we continued our counseling sessions, each one a small step towards understanding and forgiveness. It wasn't easy. There were moments of regression, doubt, and anger that threatened to undo our progress. But through it all, there was also a growing sense of partnership, a rekindling of the bond that had brought us together in the first place. As the counseling sessions progressed, Veronica and I found ourselves rediscovering not only the love that had brought us together in the first place, but also a deeper understanding of each other. As the sessions progressed, Veronica and I found ourselves rediscovering not only the love that had brought us together in the first place, but also a deeper understanding of each other's fears, desires, and dreams. Dr. Ellis had us engage in exercises that at first felt awkward, writing letters to each other that we weren't allowed to read for a week, going on first dates again, and setting aside time each night to talk about anything but our problems. Our problems, these activities designed to rebuild our intimacy, slowly began to break down the walls we had built around our hearts. One evening, as we sat on the veranda watching the sunset, Veronica turned to me. "Do you think we can really get over this, John?" Her voice was tinged with vulnerability, a stark contrast. I took a moment before answering, weighing my words. "I think we're getting there. It's not just about getting over it, though. It's about building something new out of what we've learned about each other and ourselves. It's about choosing each other every day, even when it's hard." She nodded, resting her head on my shoulder. "I choose you, John. Every day from now on, I choose you." It was a simple statement, but it carried the weight of her commitment, her realization of what really mattered. Our journey has not been without its challenges. The hurt resurfaced when doubt crept in and made us question whether we could truly move beyond the past. But each time we turned to the tools Dr. Ellis had given us and each other to navigate through the uncertainty. One particularly difficult night, when old insecurities threatened to overwhelm Veronica, I found myself holding her, whispering reassurances of my love and commitment. It was a role reversal that neither of us could have anticipated months ago, but it underlined the new dynamic in our relationship, one built on mutual support and understanding. Our children, who had been understandably confused and hurt by the tension in the house, began to respond to the renewed affection and unity between their parents. Family dinners became more frequent and filled with laughter, and weekend getaways became a cherished routine rather than a strained obligation. The day we concluded our sessions with Dr. Ellis marked both an end and a beginning. She commended us on the work we had done, reminding us that the road ahead would still require effort and dedication. "Marriage is a journey, not a destination," she said, her words a gentle reminder of the ongoing nature of the commitment we had renewed to each other. As we left her office, hand in hand, I felt a sense of accomplishment and hope. We had faced the brink of destruction and, through love and perseverance, had managed to pull ourselves back. Our marriage was not the same as before. It was stronger, more resilient, and more honest. Reflecting on the journey we had been on, I realized that this experience had not only saved our marriage, it had transformed it. We had learned the true meaning of forgiveness, of choosing each other, and of the deep, abiding love that can endure even the most severe trials. The counseling sessions had gradually shifted from a battleground of past hurts to a space where we could envision a future together, albeit a different one from the one we had once imagined. In that moment of tranquility, Veronica turned to me, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the fireplace. "John, do you think we'll ever get back to the way we were? Before all this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to break the spell of peace that had enveloped us. I pondered her question, knowing the answer was complex. "I don't think we can ever go back to exactly the way we were, Veronica. Too much has changed, we've changed, but maybe we can build something new, something stronger because of what we've done." "New, stronger, because of what we've been through," she nodded, a tear glimmering in her eye, not one of sadness but perhaps of hope. "I'd like that," she said, "to build something new with you." That conversation marked a turning point for us, an acknowledgement that while the past could not be undone, it did not have to dictate our future. We began to invest more in our relationship, finding new ways to connect and understand each other. Date nights, long walks together, and open, honest communication became the foundation of our new beginning. Our children noticed the change, too. The tension that had once hung heavy in our home was replaced by laughter and warmth. It wasn't a perfect storybook transformation, challenges remained, and we had our moments of disagreement, but there was a newfound resilience in our family unit. Veronica and I knew the road ahead would have its bumps and turns, but there was a sense of optimism that had been missing for too long as the seasons completed their cycle and brought us back into the warmth of summer. It had been a year of profound challenges and equally profound growth, a year that tested the very fabric of our marriage only to find it mended, different in texture but stronger in its weave. One late summer evening we sat on our veranda watching the sun sink below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the children inside, the sound of laughter and the occasional bickering a comforting backdrop to our quiet conversation. "This year has been a journey," I said, searching for the words to encapsulate the myriad of experiences we've shared. "I never imagined we'd come out stronger. We've worked hard to be here, John. We've faced our fears, our mistakes, and we've grown from them. I'm grateful for that, for the chance to grow together rather than apart." In that moment, there was an unspoken acknowledgement between us that we had survived the storm, not by chance, but by choice. By choosing to face our problems, by choosing each other, by choosing our family. Our conversation drifted to the future, to plans and dreams now reshaped by the trials we'd overcome. There was an understanding that while the road ahead would undoubtedly hold more challenges, we had the tools and the commitment to face them together. As the night deepened, we remained on the veranda, lost in our thoughts and the quiet beauty of the world around us, a world that had seen our worst and our best, and had seen us through it all. The story of that year, of our near fall and rise, would remain a pivotal chapter in the story of our lives. It was a testament to the power of love, not as an abstract concept. It was a testament to the power of love, not as an abstract concept, but as a living, evolving force capable of guiding us through the darkest of times. As we stood to enter the house, it felt different, not in its structure, but in its essence. It was no longer just a building that housed our family, it was a home, a testament to the resilience, love, and enduring strength of the human spirit.